There we have the British Secret Service has MI5, which is domestic, like their version of the FBI. They have MI6, right? International James Bond, go our what is like our CIA, right? Go do things across the world. Now, what if there was also MI7, a covert branch of the British Secret Service that is comprised entirely of classic monsters who themselves are spies.
Fitz of Writing.
Hey there, Scribbles and Scratches. This is your host for the evening, Sean, with Fitz of Writing. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, get all that shilling out of the way first, quick and early. This week's guest is coming to us from our benevolent benefactor, Sir Dr. Duncan Cackleworth, Esquire. He's an international man of literacy. He has familial connections with Billy Joel, and he's in training to become a corporate performance and life coach. Mr. Russ Colchamiro. How are you doing tonight, Russ?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excited to have you on. I really liked your cover art and everything like that for the story that you submitted for. But it sounds like we're going to talk about several of the books you've written.
Sure.
But the main one being Hyde Seek, Hyde with a Y, and it's a YA spy fantasy. First time I've ever ran into that genre on the show here, so I'm excited to. Can we start off with you sort of like giving a little bit of an elevator pitch for it and telling people what they'd be looking to get into?
Sure. So here's for those who don't, hold on. There we go. So you got Hide and Seek, Fury the White Mask. All right. So this is a YA horror themed spy thriller. So I'll kind of frame it up. So in the real world as it is today, there we have the British Secret Service has MI5, which is domestic, like their version of the FBI. They have MI6, right? International James Bond, what is like our CIA, right? Go do things across the world. Now, what if there was also MI7, a covert branch of the British Secret Service that is comprised entirely of classic monsters who themselves are spies. Okay.
So, and your main character being the descendant of Henry Jekyll.
So this novella is part of a larger universe of spies and monsters from Patrick Thomas and Padwolf Press. So this is just one of the entries. So as you can see here, so you got Agatha. So you have Agatha, who's 15 years old, and she's a descendant of Jekyll and Hyde. Okay, at the moment, she's just got badass reflexes and skills and training, but she's just a 15-year-old kid. Then you can see here, right, hold on. Okay, right? So this is Gilbert, who is a descendant of the Invisible Man, right? And then over here, on this one right here, so that's an original character, Lily Goupard, who is a human cheetah hybrid. Okay. So that's sort of the original team. All right. So they're purely in training, and their training in the facility is, think of like the X-Men, like Xavier School for Gifted. Think of a facility sort of like that, and it's run by Mr. Snow, who himself is a Yeti. Right. He wears a monocle and he's got a walking stick, and he's got his pinstripe suit. And he's sort of the Professor X of the group. And they get a note that Agatha's grandmother, Sarah, who herself was who had full control of the Hyde power.
Okay.
She's since retired as a spy. She's been kidnapped. And the kidnappers have said, give us the Hyde formula. Give us the actual Hyde formula, glug, glug, glug. Or Granny is. Now, as part of the note, they've dropped details that very strongly imply that it could be an inside job. So Mr. Snow says we can't employ our typical spies because we don't know who to trust. So Agatha and crew, I know you're 15 years old, you're a decade away from being ready, but we're going to have to deploy you and put you into the field. You're going to have to figure out what the heck is going on. So there's a heist component, and then you're going to have to go rescue Granny. So there's a spy thriller component in there with these kids who are definitely not ready, not anywhere close, but they have no choice. Now, while they're out in the world doing this spy stuff and capers, but what if Agatha, who's 15, what if she were to mess with the Hyde formula way before she was ready? What could possibly go wrong? And as you can see, if you look at let's see if I can get the whole, there we go. So you can kind of see how there's a big explosion back here, and there's actually a British pub here. This is all very specific to the plot of what goes on within the book. So in addition to having this YA themed and it's horror based spy caper and thriller, is that there's a lot of psychological and body horror going on. Because what would just imagine, just think for a second, what's it like to be 15 years old, just to be 15? Your brain chemistry is bonkers. You're basically clinically insane when you're 15 because of all the hormones or whatever. And what if you went glug, glug, glug? What do you think that would do to you? You think that would go well?
Nah, probably not.
Probably not. So that's our setup, and that's our theme. So it's, yes, it is YA. So there's no there are no F-bombs. There's no nudity and the violence. I mean, there's violence, but it's all within the realms. But it really pushes the boundaries of what it means to be. We all have our there's a duality amongst all of us, right? We all have a battle between the light and the dark.
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately, that's what Jekyll and Hyde was all about, was sort of, he was sort of by day, he was this mild-mannered guy, but he knew we had this stuff. He takes the formula, and then so you got Jekyll and you got Hyde, who's essentially like the Hulk within, right? So it's that battle between, my more docile self and the monster, quote unquote, that rages within all of us, right? And we do that just as humans. Well, what if you had a chemical formula that amplified that times like 1,000?
Right. Yeah. Drives you nuts. Drunk with power.
Right. So they're dealing with all this while they're dealing with some very high level, real international spy stuff when they're teenagers, and they're just not ready, but they have no choice. So it's really this is not just sink or swim. This is basically going to be like live or die. And It's like, I'm sorry to have to put you in this position, but sometimes life just be like that.
So you said that they're not ready. They're 10 years away from being ready. But just out of curiosity, how long has Agatha and the others, have they been at this special training place?
Say they've all been training, let's say 5 to 10 years apiece. Okay. So they have skills. They have training of all kinds. They have physical training, they have study, right? And they have to learn how to become an interrogation. They have to understand espionage, counter-espionage moves. So they do have skills. They do have training. It's not like they showed up day one and they said, go into the field. Said, look, you've been here for 5-10 years apiece since you were kids. So right. Stuff. But under normal conditions, we would never send you 3 15-year-olds out to go do basically grown-up stuff. Yeah. I wouldn't send a 15-year-old to do a James Bond mission because you're not James Bond yet. You're just not there yet. Someday you'll be ready, but today's not that day. Unfortunately, today has to be the day because we have no other choice. So you're just gonna have to do your best.
I kind of like you being like putting them like right in that center spot though, because like they have the training and they've learned how to do all of the stuff and everything, but it isn't reflex yet. So there's probably a lot of struggle in the story as they're getting
Yes.
sort of trial by fire
Correct.
earlier than normal. That's
Right. I mean, they're also when you're also out in the field, like if you have a team, someone has to be the team leader, right? And someone has to direct traffic. You do this, you do that, and this is how it goes. Well, what if all of a sudden it's like, hey, we didn't really decide who was the leader, but guess what? It's you. Go figure it out right now in real time. You don't have a month to map this out. It's figure it out in the car on the way there.
Yeah. High stakes. That's a good thing to give a 15-year-old is lots and lots of high stakes stress.
Yes.
Oh man. And this is like the first story. Is it a series or is this a one-off?
So the universe, this is the fourth or fifth book in the series. This is sort of call it like a breakout adventure. So Patrick Thomas with Padwolf Press. So he's done, if you can see here on the back, the other books, right? You got this one with Frankenstein, and who else is in there? So you got Frankenstein, you got monsters, you got other classic monsters who my crew is not involved in any of those adventures. This is just a breakout, sort of like think of this as a side quest within a larger universe. You do not need to know anything about the other characters or the world. It's completely irrelevant. These guys exist unto themselves. There may be at some point, there may be more adventures with my crew, but we'll see.
Well, that would be awesome. You got your own little, like, the monster verse that never happened with Universal and everything, like kind of coming out on the page and everything, which has got to be kind of an exciting thought. I want to talk about how you kind of got involved with all that when we get to the writing portion. I wanted to really just say, like, for anybody who reads YA or enjoys espionage literature, who would you say, like, you took a lot of inspiration from in order to put this story down to paper?
Well, I write, almost everything that I write has some component of I mostly write thrillers and pulp. That's just what I do across everything. So a novella like this is right in my wheelhouse. But I had never written classic monsters before.
Yeah.
So I really sort of, so my buddy Patrick Thomas, who is a terrific writer, and this is his universe, when he was talking about what he was doing, he invited, because Pat and I are working on another project, which you can actually see right here, Murder in Montague Falls, which we'll talk about later, and the sequel. And Pat and I have been friends for, I can't even remember, 15, 20 years. He invited me to come into this project because my piece was supposed to be involve a portion of a larger book, but that book got delayed for just life reasons. So we decided we're going to just pull this out as a one-off and just kind of do it by itself, and then we'll see what happens there. So really, from an inspiration standpoint, I mean, Pat said, look, here's the basic frame up I need you to do, which is the Hyde formula. Here's some characters that you have to use. Go wild. Just come up with something.
And you said,
okay.
So I didn't,
okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean
Okay.
to try to interrupt you there, but the question that I had next was like, for your cheetah hybrid character, human cheetah hybrid, was that 100% made up by you, or was that something that he wanted?
No, that was Pat Thomas said, here's the frame up. You need to include Agatha, Gilbert, and Lily.
Okay.
These characters have to be there because of whatever his mastermind reasons were. And He said, here's who they are. This is kind of what this is what their profiles are. Beyond that, have at it. Come up with something. Tell me what you got. And he said, there had to be a heist component and a thriller. Other than that, you have basically free reign to come up with something. So I came up with a pitch. I said, this is what I think. He said, great. and then I did it.
Nice. I mean, it's cool to like kind of get that like freedom to like do what you want to do, but still get like just the right little nudge to be like, okay, give me this stuff or whatever, but then the story's yours after that. And
Yeah, it was good having the he came up with the guardrails
yeah,
and said within that he said it's just a very basic structure, but then he really gave me a ton of latitude. And even when I submitted the story, there were very few changes that he had, and they were, a couple of them were very technical, just because I misunderstood one thing, and we changed one thing it was a very minor tweak, but other than that, just the story was, he loved it. And what I like to do is, and this is just thematic to how I write, is I like to do a mix of sort of fairly complex plotting with big set pieces,
okay,
whopper finales, but also have very intimate character moments. So it's not, because I don't want the characters to feel like they're cardboard cutouts, that you're just moving them around for the plot's sake.
right.
I want you, as the reader, to be invested in what's going on with the characters. I want you to really care, because if you don't care, even if you like the story, you might be like, oh, that was cool. But if you care about the characters, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that he, she, or they, that they did this or tried this or this happened or that happened. Holy. So when the twists come and the danger is involved, if you're invested in the character, then those tense moments are really tense.
Right.
Because what I like, my style of writing is, it's just my approach, is that I'm never having so much fun as when I take two characters and I get them together and I have them go at it. I mean, I want real friction, because that's when people start getting pissed off and upset and, all the stuff, that's when they start telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because people in general, they try to be polite. They don't want to upset each other, or they don't really say the real thing. They'll say everything except the real thing. I want to get to the stuff underneath the stuff. And I want you to get so upset, so frustrated, so scared, so worried, so confused that you say the quiet parts out loud. And that's what I like to do. So I put these characters on a point where they say the quiet parts out loud.
Well, you certainly threw a bunch of kids into a rough situation. I can see that. I got to go save grandma at the age of 15.
Yeah.
And you got your little demonic sides coming out and everything. It does sound like it's a fast-paced, exciting read. And you said it was a novella.
Yeah.
How many pages are there roughly?
Oh, good question. This one is, I don't even know. This is 80, 85, about. Big type. So this is not, I can't remember how many words. It's a fairly quick read. I mean, you'll get through it easily. I like to keep things moving along. I don't write literature. That's just not what I do. I write pulp. So if it doesn't need to be there, it ain't going to be there.
Gotcha.
If it doesn't advance the story or it doesn't advance the characters, it's gone. It's gone. There's no, like those, like there, and I do it too. It's, your classic kill your darlings. I've written plenty of scenes throughout my career where, oh, what a great scene, but it doesn't fit here.
Okay.
I gotta cut it, and I'll put it in a file, and maybe I'll use it somewhere else. Or there's a great piece of dialogue where a conversation really is bringing up some stuff, and you're like, wow, that was cool, but it just doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
It's gotta go. You gotta cut it. So, I mean, sometimes, once in a while, I might leave it in, because sometimes it's just, I love it so much. I'm like, I don't care. But honestly, 95% of the time, if it does not absolutely need to be there, it has to serve a purpose. If it doesn't, it's gone.
And want to talk to you a little bit more about that in the writing portion, but before we get over to that section, you had mentioned that you had written, and it's even on your cover art, the Angela Hardwick series.
Yeah.
that was labeled as sci-fi, wasn't it?
They're sci-fi thrillers.
Yeah. And is that like mostly kind of where you stick to, or like is this your first venture with Hide and Seek? Is that your first venture into horror? Kind of give me a little bit about like what other stuff you've written for everybody that might not be familiar with you.
And so I've been on book tour for, let's say, 20 years between my novels, novellas, and the short stories that appear in other collections. My work is in, I don't know, 35 or 40 books at this point. I've sort of lost track. I predominantly write thrillers, thrillers and mystery, a lot of sci-fi, some crime. There's elements of horror in a lot of what I do. I've actually written my first horror novel. It's actually out with a publisher right now, and I'm waiting to get word in the next week or two whether it's a yes, no. And if it's a yes, then it's a yes. If not, then I'll sell it to someone else. That's okay. So Angela Hardwick so there's 5 books in the series. You can see them on the poster. So you got Crackle and Fire is book 1. You've got Fractured Lives is book 2. Hot Ash, book 3. Blunt Force Rising is book 4. And Trigger Point is book 5. And actually book 5 won the was it the Blackthorn Tours Book of the Year for 2024 or 5, I can't remember. Anyway, wow. So that was exciting. Hardwick, in my mind, Hardwick is part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, and part John Wick. Okay. She takes on the kind of cases that you think a private eye would take: missing persons, kidnapping, arson, extortion, murder. But she also takes on cases that deal with time travel, parallel universes, android uprising, alien worlds, spaceships, a miles-long helix of the universe's DNA folds in space-time. So she does very street-level, gritty investigations, but she also does big kind of, galactic and intergalactic shenanigans. So they're mysterious, they're twisty, they're dangerous, they're violent. There's a lot of psychological elements into it, and she's got a recurring cast of characters who kind of pop in and out, who populate her universe. In the 5 novels, and I consider this to be series 1 because it's an ongoing series. Okay. These are standalone thrillers. You can read them in any order. It does not matter. I reintroduce the characters and the world building every time out. So you can read them in any order, in order, or one and done, and it won't matter because I tell you exactly what you need to know and exactly where you are. So whether you pick up book 1, book 3, book 5, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you who everybody is, so you can just take it as it is. However, I will add that there is some character development throughout. So if you're a purist, you start with book 1, you get to book 5, but you don't have to. So don't feel like, oh God, now I have to commit to a whole series. No, you don't have to. You can, and I hope you do, but you don't. But you don't have to. And it'll just depend on which plot that appeals to you more.
Oh no! Everybody commit to the whole series and also get yourself a copy of Hide and Seek. Yes. Definitely, I like that. So there's a slight change that goes throughout the whole thing, but I feel like that's kind of a smart move there. You give the reader the option to, like, okay, I can come back to this whenever I want to, and I won't forget anything even if it's several years in between the books that I pick up. Was that something that you like consciously decided to do before you kind of dove into, like, say, book 2?
So what happened is Hardwick started off completely by, well, whether it's you call it an accident or kismet or whatever. She was a very she was a blip in another book, in another series. It was blink and you miss her. She was in it for like one fraction of one chapter. She had no real larger purpose in this one book. But I went, because I've always loved private eyes my whole life. I love reading about them. I love writing and watching them. I love them. They're great. And I love sci-fi and I love mysteries. So I went, that's interesting. So in the second book, I did this sci-fi backpacking comedy series. It was my first series. Think of it's Finders Keepers, Genius de Milo, and Astropalooza. And it's think of it like Bill and Ted meets Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's kind of like the frame up.
Okay.
And I went, huh, that's interesting. Who is Hardwick? So I bumped her up in book. She appeared in book 2 briefly. So in book 3, and she appears in Genius de Milo. And then I hold on. Actually, I got them right here. Hold on.
Sure.
So, and I'm constantly messing with these things. So this is Finders Keepers, which is, I've redone it like 4 times, and I'll probably do it again.
I get it.
Genius de Milo is book 2, and then Astropalooza is book 3. So in Genius de Milo, she was blink and you miss her. But I said, this is something. So I bumped her up to a strong secondary character in the 3rd book in the series because I wanted to see what that would be like. And I went, all right, this is speaking to me in a real way. So I said, all right, I want to do a series with her, but I'm not sure if it's going to play. So what I did was I wrote 1 short story. So I'm part of a group called Crazy 8 Press. We're an author collective. Now there's 10 of us actually, and there's a whole bunch of New York Times bestselling authors who are part of the group. A lot of Star Trek folks were in there, Michael Jan Friedman, Bob Greenberger, and others. Well, anyway, so I put out this collection called Love, Murder, Mayhem, which I probably would have titled a little bit differently, but they're all sci-fi mysteries that have to deal with some form of love, or with some form of love or romance. But love can mean lots of different things. So there are private eyes, AIs, superheroes, supervillains, time travel, androids, and whatnot. But in any case, I did a short story with Hardwick just to see how it would go. And I went, okay. And it's all first person. And I went, okay. And I went, all right, this works. So then I said, okay, I'm going to write a novel, which turned out to be the first book, which is Crackle and Fire. And I'll say, just if you read Crackle and Fire, there's a short story, a bonus short story in this book, which is one of my favorites. I've written, I think, 6 or 7 Hardwick short stories, and the one in this one is one of my favorites. That's where you really get the Blade Runner element really starting to kick in. And then after that, I said, okay, I got this. Like, she's my girl. Like, she's just a part of me. And then because I read a lot of mystery and a lot of crime on my own, both in sci-fi and just standard crime and mystery. I've read some other series, and I liked the way that they framed it up, where it was basically you reintroduce the characters and the world building at the very beginning of every single entry so that a new reader can dive right in and you know exactly who you are. So, and I like that model because it worked for me as well, especially because not only we're doing private eye stuff, we're doing galactic and intergalactic private eye stuff. So there's that extra layer of world building, and I wanted to make sure that readers felt grounded right away in every book because I want to take away the confusion. So you go, okay, right, chapter 1, I know exactly where I am, and I know exactly who I'm dealing with. There's no mystery in that sense. So I want the entranceway to be very easy for you. So you can slide right in. So I use that kind of model. And then going forward, I had this idea of what are the kinds of stories that I wanted to tell with Hardwick. So in the first book, she's hunting an intergalactic serial killer. In the second book, she's after the Scarlet Raj who can steal a piece of your soul. In the third book, she's in Hot Ash. This deals with an off-world dome city that's covering up a really gnarly conspiracy. The fourth book, Blunt Force Rising, has to deal with like an android uprising. Think of this as like Die Hard in space with a zombie apocalypse. It is a balls to the wall, gruesome, bloody action thriller. And then the last one, Trigger Point. This has to do with pimps and sex workers and the fracturing of the actual space-time. And all these pieces come into play. So throughout the series, there's several of the books. So this one and this one and this one all have a heavy cyberpunk vibe to it. And the second one also includes Hardwick origin story, which I love. And I knew I have pages and pages and pages of backstory on Hardwick that I've never used and I may never use, but it's because I wanted to make sure I knew who she was.
Right.
I mean, think of it this way, because when we meet her, she's only, 32, 33 years old. She's got a young son. Well, how does a 30-year-old become a private eye, but an intergalactic private eye? This is not like a normal 9-to-5 job. Like something's got to be like, any billionaire in the world, just because you're in a billionaire doesn't mean you're Batman. Something's got to be going on with you to choose to go be Batman. You got some issues. So for Hardwick to do what Hardwick does, there has to be a reason why she does what she does. And I had to know that reason.
I really like that quote. Just because you're a billionaire, it doesn't make you Batman. I like that a lot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of value in having like your details that you have about your character, especially if it's one that frequents your stories a lot, like knowing her top to bottom, front to back, inside, outside, all that stuff, even if it never becomes relevant on page, because it can inform the way that you write it. Let's dive deeper into the writing stuff, but first, real quick message from the boss about our monthly Telltale contest.
Kindly lend me your ears, my dear Scribbles and Scratches, and if you've any sense about you, your imaginations as well. The Fitz of Writing has officially turned our lovely Telltale writing prompts into a challenge. My idea, of course. What better way to stoke the fires of creativity than with a bit of friendly blood sport betwixt cohorts? To join the fray, submit your tale in the comments of the monthly Telltale prompt, or if you're too timid to toss your words into the abysmal ether of the internet, simply email us with the heading Telltale or TAT for short, and don't forget to add the month. Fear not, you will not miss our monthly post, for we shall repost it every week. At the end of the month, your gracious hosts shall pick their favorite and provide the winner with a simple yet wondrous audiovisual package of the chosen tale. So, what are you waiting for? Spill some ink, strike the like, and semper scribe.
All right, we're going to kind of just go into the portion that's mostly just about your writing, but definitely feel free to mention your stories in any way, shape, or form that's relevant. The thing that I think that I was wondering the most about you while we were collecting the info from you and everything was just like how somebody gets not only inspired to do as many stories as you've written, but you just listed off like sex workers and something about space-time continuum fracturing, like. What makes you mix those such random things together?
So I start. Are you talking about specifically with this series? I wanted to explore. Like I said, I like big chunky plots.
Yeah,
because that's just what I love. I love pulp stories. I like things that are big and exaggerated and are really take you someplace. And what you can find in a recurring series is that, and it could be a novel series, it could be a TV series, it could be movies, whatever it is. And you'll find someone who does a formula, right? Book 1, book 2, book 7, book 12, they're all the same. It just rinse, cycle, repeat. And you know what? If it works, God bless you. God bless you. If you can have a best-selling series by rinse, cycle, repeat, more power to you. And you're just kind of like, it's basically the same book every time with slightly different characters and you twist the plot a little bit, good for you. Awesome. I don't like to repeat myself.
Okay.
Because I think for two reasons. One, as a writer, I get bored. Because I'm like, I already did this. I don't want to do it again. And as the reader, I don't want you to get bored. I don't want you sitting there going, all right, I get it. This is basically the same as the other book, but okay, but I like him, so I don't care. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I don't like it because I lose my interest. I need to be constantly inspired to push the envelope and try new things. Earlier, I've never really been safe, but earlier in my career, I was a little safer than I wanted to be. I was not evolved enough to trust myself to just like put myself onto the pages. And with Hardwick, I said, that's it. The gloves are off. You know, she's my muse, and I speak through Hardwick in a lot of ways. A lot of the pieces, there's a piece of me in everything I've written. Now, Hardwick isn't me, but there are pieces of me in Hardwick. There are pieces of me in various characters. You know, so like in the first book, she is hired by a young accounting executive who says, one of my middle-aged interns has stolen sensitive files and I need you to get them back for me. Well, she doesn't like this kid and she doesn't really trust him, but for reasons I will not explain, she feels compelled to take the case.
Okay.
And she winds up getting mixed up with kind of an Occupy Wall Street social movement, as well as some time travel and this intergalactic serial killer. And because I wanted to like say, well, what would happen if like a madman got loose out there and there was no way to stop him? Like, what would you actually do? Okay, this seems like somewhat of a problem. So I really wanted to like push her in a very dangerous direction and see what that would be like. In the second book, as I alluded to before, she's approached by a middle-aged mother who says, please don't dismiss me. The cops laugh in my face. People think I'm crazy, but I'm not. My teenage daughter, who is a freshman at a prestigious design and galactic design college, everyone says she's having a nervous breakdown. She's not. Please, please listen to me. Someone has stolen a piece of her soul, and I need you to get it back. Well, what do you say when someone says, someone has stolen a piece of my daughter's soul, I need you to get it back? Okay. But the reason that I wrote about that is it was in my response to all the children who were psychologically and emotionally destroyed during the pandemic.
Okay.
And I wanted to sort of follow that path. And so I kind of wrote about that. Plus it mixes her up with the art world, college, you know, university level politics, and the, like I said, and the Scarlet Raj, who's like, ooh, it's an urban legend. Ooh, you better be careful. The Scarlet Raj will come and get you. But is the Scarlet Raj real or not? We'll have to find out. And what would the implications be if there was someone out there? What if someone could steal a piece of your soul? What if they actually could? What if there was a mechanical or magical way to do that? Like, what would that do to somebody? That sounds like a problem. So I wanted to push Hardwick in a way that was really going to test her. And she has a protege, Eric Whistler. Okay. And Eric Whistler, when he first shows up in the first two books, he's basically like, hey, I'll do anything. I just want to be on Team Hardwick. I'll stay up for 4 days straight doing research. I'll dumpster dive for evidence. I don't care. Just put me in, coach. But as the series goes on, he starts to level up and he starts saying, well, I'm not really your intern anymore. I want a seat at the table. And she says, basically, oh yeah, well, good for you. So they have a lot of friction because she never said that she was great at being a mentor. She never claimed to be great at teaching someone, but she's agreed to do this. So she's got to learn, she's got to figure out, can I bring someone along in this very dangerous world? Because I'm responsible and I'm not used to relying on anyone but myself. So there's a lot of challenge there. Plus she has a 5-year-old son. And when we first meet her, it really comes down to, can I do this crazy intergalactic dangerous work? This is not 9 to 5. What if she's gone for days, weeks, months, or lost in the folds of space-time for thousands of years and then pops back? You can't just like say, oops, sorry, son, I wasn't here for 2,000 years. You can't really do that. So the question becomes in the first two books, can I be this intergalactic private eye and be a good mother to my son? If the answer is yes, what does that look like? If the answer is no, what does that look like? Now, I'm not going to say which way she goes, but that's what she's grappling with, right? So then in the third book, she is hired by a widow who says, my elderly husband, who had a big real estate empire, because I work in the real estate business, so I know that business very well. He died, and he had all of this big portfolio, but my stepkids with the will when he was dying, and they wrote me out of everything, and they stole all my assets. I need you to get it back. So she starts to investigate this crime, but it leads her into learning about this alternate form of the synthetic concrete, a non-addictive form of cocaine, and this off-world dome city that has it's a beautiful city, but it may be covering up something far more insidious. So I wanted to finally take Hardwick off her realm and put her somewhere else. So now the scope is getting much more dangerous. Then in the fourth book, what I wanted to do, and this was a pisser, which was Blunt Force Rising. My initial concept is I wanted to do a complete closed room whodunit. Basically like, everyone's in one room and someone's the killer, and how do you figure out who it was? Holy crap, is that hard? Wow. And I realized that's not the story I was really trying to tell. So what's happened here is that Hardwick and Whistler, her protege, are hired to do private security on this galactic cruise ship during an AI and robotics conference at a time when androids have recently been granted rights. But just because androids have been granted rights on paper doesn't mean that everyone's okay with it. Okay. So while they're on the ship, a murder takes place, which sets off a chain reaction, which basically destroys the interior of the ship. Communications are knocked out. The engines are knocked out. Life support is waning. There's essentially a zombie apocalypse between androids and humans in a battle to the death, while they're literally a million miles from anywhere, and there is no way to call for help. So this is literally a survival to the fittest, and either you make it to the end or you don't. So I completely broke the model with Hardwick. There's no street level investigation. You are literally trapped in this tin can in space, a million miles from anywhere, hoping you don't die. So I said, all right, I got it, because I wanted to try something completely different and push the envelope for myself. And things get really kind of gnarly. And then, like with the last one, I went back to the beginning. I wanted Hardwick to be back on the streets, and she gets hired for reasons I won't explain. She's recently been let out of prison.
Okay.
And she has to take a job from a pimp who's a real nasty piece of work, who she knows for reasons, again, I will not explain, who says, my best earner has been killed, but this is not about business. This is personal, and I want you to find out who did it. Hardwick doesn't really want to take the case, but she's got to eat. So she takes the case, and she winds up dealing with very dangerous sex workers. They're in a these sex workers are in a very, very dangerous environment. Meanwhile, Whistler, her partner, has gone missing. He's literally going in and out of flux. He's caught in some sort of temporal loop where he'll pop up for 30 seconds and then vanish again. And she's trying to figure out what happened and why and bring him back. And meanwhile, the infrastructure of space-time is literally starting to crumble. And all these pieces are working simultaneously, and they're all interconnected in some way. So in every single book, I threw out the model of the previous one and did something completely different and pushed the envelope as far as I could take it, because I wanted to test myself, and I wanted to take the reader in a place and in a direction that I hadn't taken them before, and yet have it feel very Hardwick.
I gotta feel like, after getting a rundown of the whole series, like, I feel bad for Hardwick. Like, yeah, hopefully she charges much higher rates than people who exclusively work on the street level stuff.
She doesn't. When things are going well, she gets paid.
I hope so. You have to stop an android uprising, and then you have to go figure out who killed a hooker. Like that. That's got to mess with somebody's head, like having such a with peaks and valleys as far as like the scale and scope of things. And But I really, really like that you try to do something different every time that you write. Is there anything that you say that you specifically do that kind of helps you keep track of and not repeat anything, or is it just that you will pull a random element out of the ether and make it fit into your plot so that it's something new?
Well, I kind of go where I'm always instinctively just looking to go places that I haven't gone before. And I have 5 books for a next series, which I kind of have loosely mapped out. And I also have standalone novels. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to stagger them, but in each one, they all deal with kind of a different theme and a different style. Because like I said, I don't want to repeat myself. And I want to go places that I haven't gone before with Hardwick, while bringing back, so she walks in her city, she walks the streets, so we start to see the same landmarks. I show you them again, right? And and if you read the whole series, you're gonna like, oh, I recognize this, oh, I recognize that. I'll reference other pieces from other books. So the world building is really important. You feel like her world is kind of another character, and you kind of know where the major landmarks are. And then I also try to take you to different portions of her world that you haven't seen. I bring you to some places you've seen before, so it feels familiar. Okay, I'm grounded, I know where I am. But then I take you to different pieces, like, oh, we haven't seen that neighborhood before, or you haven't gone there, like in so in this one, in the last book, Trigger Point, we also deal with the dreamscape. So actually it's really interesting if you see. So there's so right here, this is directly from the plot. And this Rottweiler is interesting. So every cover, I design the covers myself. I don't do the clickety clacking because I can't do that. But I tell my designer, this is what I want, and then he brings it to life. So I wanted to have Hardwick basically kind of like being like electrocuted, like with this like blue lightning, and she's like screaming like this. And then he had kind of like a peppering, like a star. I said there have to be some stars in the background. But what happened was, with the way of the configuration of the stars, it looked like the outline of a Rottweiler. And I said, well, hang on. There's an actual dog, a demonic dog, in the dreams as part of this book. Let's make him an actual drooling, savage animal. And that kind of came to life. So in that book, we also go into the dreamscape, which is another element I had never touched on in the other books before. So I'm trying to like toy with. So you've got some cyberpunk stuff, some real you've got cybernetic elements, but yet you've got the dreamscape. You've got time travel. We've gone on spaceships. We've gone on to other planets. We've got a different cast of characters. We deal with at some parts we deal with nanobots. We deal with technology. We deal with healthcare. We deal with socioeconomic elements. So I'm trying to touch a lot of different elements that she would touch, because you take different cases and it takes you into different places. And if I'm going to spend 80 or 90,000 words, I want to spend that time in an area of her world that I haven't done before. And I'll know if I've already done it, because I've done it. And it's a mandate for myself. I refuse to repeat myself. I won't do it. I'll be bored and you'll be bored.
I respect that. Trying to make sure that you're always doing something new and different. It sounds really like, I'm going to say the word bombastic, but I mean it in a positive way. Like it's very loud and in your face, it sounds like. And before I ask like the big question that I sent you when we originally emailed you, I did want to ask, maybe almost revisit something I said earlier, because I don't want to just forget that we were talking about hide and seek. But you seems like you naturally challenge yourself to write new, exciting, unique stories every time. Was it actually more difficult to do hide and seek since there were some like bumpers over the gutters of the bowling alley there? Like it was.
No, not really.
No, just usual day at the office.
I mean, look, I knew that. So with hide and seek, my style of writing is essentially this. I write in a 3-act structure because it works for me. Part 1, part 2, part 3. That's just the way I do it. It doesn't mean I won't mix it up from time to time, but basically that's what I stick with. So I knew structurally with hide and seek, I knew what part 1 was going to be. I knew what part 2 had to be, and I knew what part 3 was going to be conceptually. So once you map it out and you kind of know what the parts are, then it's just a matter of executing it. And what I do is, if you have part 1, part 2, and part 3, and they're more or less, let's say if it's a novel, it's 90,000 words, it's 30, 30, 30, thereabouts. It could be plus or minus. So you take part 1. Part 1 has a part 1, 2, and 3. So 30 becomes 10, 10, and 10. And I just keep breaking it down like that. So with a novella, if it's shorter, again, it's still part 1, part 2, part 3. And then I take each part and I break it down into thirds. And I keep making the pieces smaller, and then I map it out in advance, and then I just write them out. And because with a novella, it's a little bit shorter, I knew where I needed to be. I don't know if you know of the book. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And he start with the end in mind, which is what I always do. I need to know how the story ends. Right. Some people they figure it out as they go, and that's fine. I want to know where I'm ending because I want to know where I'm going.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you on that.
Because especially when you're writing mysteries, if one piece in the chain doesn't make sense, it just collapses like a house of cards.
Right.
So if I know I'm going to end here, then it's like, well, what happens 5 steps before the end? And then 5 steps before that, and that, and that. You have to, so you go this way and backwards. You have to back into it as well. So when I know where I'm going, I'm able to write with more confidence because I know to get here, there have to be certain benchmarks that the plot and the characters have to reach. You've got to get here by this point. You've got to get here by this point. This has to happen by this point, and so on and so forth. So if you break the story down into smaller pieces, it's actually a lot less daunting. And that's just kind of structurally, and process, that's just what I do.
Taking it in bites. I can get behind that. Yeah. I got one more question for you that has to do with hide and seek, but really any story that you've written. You're a real big fan of, like you said, big, exciting plots, fast paced, especially with your pulp stuff and anything that you wrote that's shorter. Yeah. Do you have any special tricks that you have that kind of help you maintain the pacing for your characters or for the situations that they're in as you're putting together a narrative?
I tend to do a bunch of pre-writing, meaning I think about it sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, depending on what it is, and I got to talk it through. And the way my process is, first I have an idea. I just noodle on it for a while, and I walk a lot. I walk outside. It's just how I'm very physical, right? I gesticulate. I talk with my hands. I go out. I walk the dog. I take long walks, and I talk the plot out loud. And if I can't, from memory, say, okay, I think the story is essentially X. If I can't do that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a row, and it's the same, it means I don't have it yet. Okay. It means I'm still kind of like finding my way. It's like, I don't know, I'm stuck. But once I start going, okay, boom, boom, and I get to that point where I'm like, I don't want to talk about this anymore, then I have it. Then I write it down. I say, okay, this is the basic structure. This is what has to happen. And then they're like, I know I want this scene to be there somewhere. I know I want this. I know I want this. There are bits and pieces of dialogue that I want to be there. And then there are themes. I want the characters to explore this part of themselves through, whether it's through action, dialogue, or both, but I want to get into some stuff. And I take a bunch of notes so that I have it sort of laid out, and then I break it down into, all right, part 1 starts here. How does part 1 end? I have to know where that ends. Okay. Oh, that's the end of part 1. Then I go forward and go, how does part 2 end? Because I like to end all my parts on a cliffhanger. How does that end? And then how does part 3 end? So once I know where those endpoints are, again, that's how I can move with more assuredness, because I'm moving to a very specific point. And when I know where I'm moving, then I can really move with urgency, because then I say, okay, well, I only have so many words to get there. I got to get there as fast as I can. However, it takes as long as it takes. And I have to make sure that I've included all the interstitial pieces. All those in between nodes have to be there. Because if you're just skipping over big plot points, can you? Sure. And the readers will care or they won't care, but I care. I need to know that all the pieces make sense. And I do it that way. So I've got plot points that have to be there. And then there's the character elements that I want in there. And I use humor, and I want there to be some, like I said, I want you to care. So it's also important to me that I make sure that I make time for the quiet moments. Because if you're just running full speed the whole time, it can absolutely work. But if you don't stop once in a while to catch your breath, you miss some stuff. Think about Terminator, right? That's a pretty relentless movie. But even between being hunted down, Reese and Sarah Connor, even if it's just for a minute or two, they're hiding behind the car, reloading the shotgun or whatever, and they're literally catching their breaths, and they're catching up on a couple of things, and they have to share some intimate moments. Without those intimate moments, the action doesn't mean as much. So it's important to me that I have those. We have to breathe for a minute and just be. And sometimes those moments are profound, and sometimes they're just quiet, because you need quiet, because I want to show that the characters are human too. They're just not this infallible. They're not these infallible machines. And, if you get punched, kicked, shot, injured, it's not like, oh, I took a bullet in the chest, in the arm, and then in the next chapter, you're running around like nothing ever happened. Right. Physicality matters. Injuries are real. Concussions are real. You get the wind knocked out of you, you're not breathing right away. You get punched in the face. Guess what? You're gonna have a black eye. Is that black eye still there 4 chapters later, or did you just forget about it? Those things matter to me. And I want the characters to carry the weight of what they've gone through as they go along, because it impacts how they carry themselves, how they interact, and the choices that they make. It's not realistic to me. I mean, not that any of this is realistic, but I want them to feel, I want to be grounded as I can be within these fantastical situations, so that you say, I believe that this character would do or say those specific things in that specific way at that specific moment, because it's consistent with who that character is, given who they are and where they are. And those things really matter to me, because if I don't, then they're just cartoon characters, and then you undercut the stakes, and I don't want to do that. All the actions and the outcomes have to be earned, and if they're not earned, I won't do it.
Well, it sounds like you have a really thorough process by which you kind of make sure that you touch on all the right points and everything, and I respect that. There's a lot of right by the seat of your pantsers out there getting interviewed on the channel, so to have somebody who at least structures it to some degree, I got lucky that I got to talk to you instead of. By the way,
I have no issue. There's a constant question between plotting and pantsing. Whatever works for you as an author, that's what works by definition. I pants to some degree. I have a lot of structure, but I leave space for new stuff to pop up. I have I don't look down on people who pants. I mean, there are great pantsers out there. God bless them. I just found, for me, given what I'm trying to accomplish and the deadlines that are set forth, if I want to get where I want to be and doing it at a very high level, because I hold myself to a very high standard, what I need is that structure. Because if without it, I'm sort of just I'm feeling for it along the way, and it takes me a lot of time, and I've become much more efficient over the years, and the efficiency for me comes through doing the pre-writing, and because it saves me a lot of time on the back end.
Yeah, I can absolutely respect that. I am having a great time, but we are just about out of time. I wanted to give you some time here to tell everybody where they can find your books, where they can follow you on any of your socials, your website, anything like that. It'll all be down in the video description, but why don't you tell everybody real quick where they can hunt you down?
Sure. So you can find me at my website, which is just russcolchamiro.com. You can find me on socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I stopped using X years ago for all the reasons. I also host, for those who don't know, I host my own podcast. I've done it for the last 6 years, Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster, where I interview sci-fi, mystery, crime, and horror authors from international New York Times bestselling authors all the way down to sort of indie authors. And I do one-on-one interviews and I do themed interviews. I've had, in the sci-fi space, I've had, Robert J. Sawyer and Kevin J. Anderson and Nicholas Meyer, who wrote and directed Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, amongst others, who, by the way, is a friend and gave me a big blurb, loves the Hardwick series. So I figured I must be doing something right. I got horror, New York Times bestselling horror authors. I've done panels on Star Wars, Star Trek, The Expanse, Blade Runner, Farscape, and on and on. You can find those on YouTube. They're free to watch. You can also find all the episodes on my podcast. But again, YouTube, it's Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster. So I'm on the socials, and you can find my books if you want to buy them on Amazon. You can get them there. And if you want to get them signed, you can buy them directly from me. Just ping me, and I'll sign them, and I'll send them out to you that way. And I'm on book tour right now. I'm based in the Northeast. I'll be in the New Jersey Horror Con at the end in Edison, New Jersey. The last weekend of May, I will be in Stoker Con in Pittsburgh. The weekend of June 5th, and then I will be at the Sci-Fi Valley Con in the Lehigh Valley the weekend of June 12th, and then I'll be at Shore Leave in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In the middle of July, I'll be in Brooklyn at Books and Brews in September, and then I will be at Monster Mania in Oaks, Pennsylvania in November.
You are a busy guy. You keep moving, man. That's awesome. I'm happy for you. We're going to be wrapping things up then here. I will, like I said, put all your socials and a link to, it's a YouTube channel for your podcast?
Yep.
I'll put that down in the description as well if anybody wants to check your show out. For our viewers, if you want to support us or any of the authors we host on here, you can check all their stuff out in the video description. Strike the like, subscribe. Check us out on Reddit and the Inkwell Society, where you can interact with us directly. Is there anything you want to say to everybody before we wrap it up, Russ?
Look, Sean, this was great. Thanks very much for taking the time and asking me a couple of questions. Always happy to chat with you guys. I hope this was good for you. It was fun for me, and for anyone who's out there who's checking it out. Please interact. One of my favorite things to do is to interact with the fans.
Absolutely.
For me, it's not just a transactional buy my book kind of thing. I want to get to know you. We can get to know each other. I'm a very big believer in making friends and building community. Let's kind of be together, and let's share all the nerdy goodness that we love together, and come and hang out. That's really kind of what I'm about.
Absolutely. Same thing with our channel. We are hopeful that you will hopefully get at least a little bit of new, like you said, friends and community out of it. But with that, I guess we will fade to black.